So that's why things like tones, body actions, looks, words trigger us. Because when we were a kid, somebody said something
that tone.
in that tone, or used that look or that motion. Anytime somebody just happens to use a very similar tone or look or action, it
the
triggers.
brain picks up on it. Goes, I remember that look.
And I need to defend myself.
So they actually say, some of this research says that poetry and comedy is some of the most effective ways to train the brain compared to doing brain training or mindfulness, which is crazy. But it's when they study the brain, they can see someone listening to a joke and their brain's going sort of firing in one area, and then the punchline hits and they get a shock, and then this other part of the brain sort of clicks, then they get resolution. It's called incongruity coherence resolution, is what they call it. And it's the same thing with the raps. You're sort of thinking, well, that's not right, that's not me, and then you walk away, you go and do something, and suddenly you're like, oh yeah, now I see it differently. And that's how the brain gets new perspective.
Yeah, we often get it, people pull up a number, because the way our system is, you can't see the titles of the poetry. You only have a 3-digit number. So you think of a 3-digit number and it comes up, and often people look and say, when they do see it,
it generates a poem.
A poem, it generates a poem, yes. And you can listen to it or you can read it. And I tend to hop very quickly. So, people bring up the poem or the prose, and they say, well, that's not me, But what they don't realize is something in there that your subconscious knows is applicable to you. And after they've read or listened to it, it's then maybe even some time afterwards, suddenly, that's what that was all about. So yes, it was connected to me.
It always takes a while for the defensive part of our brain to calm down. And when you're concentrating, that's not going to happen. That happens when you're relaxed. And the thing we also always say to people is that the prose are analogies.
Yeah.
They're not life stories per se, they're analogies. That's the whole point. And so if you try and analyse anything that's in an analogy, you're going to get a little bit stuck. But again, when you relax, that's when you kind of go, oh, okay, maybe that isn't what my life was like, but this was what my life was like. And it's the whole process in the brain of triggering an old memory and seeing it differently is what reshapes our memories. That's that neuroscience of memory reconsolidation. And it's the most powerful way to be naturally calmer. Because I'll tell you what, if you don't do it, your memories are still saved in the brain in the exact form they were when you had that moment. The moment you jog it and see it with different perspective, you instantly rewrite a part of that memory. But until you do that, those childhood fears are stuck there.
Always.
Sending you little signals the whole time. You've been in a situation like this before. This is how you need to respond to protect yourself. Until you downsize those, and as Dad said, you had no life experience back then. Things felt huge. And so this is why it's so interesting.
So that's why things like tones, body actions, looks, words trigger us. Because when we were a kid, somebody said something in that tone, or used that look or that motion, or you dropped your ice cream, and the reaction is really powerful. And from then on, anytime somebody just happens to use a very similar tone or look or action,
the brain picks up on it. Goes, I remember that look.
And I need to defend myself because I had some repercussions last time, or the first time I encountered that. And that's what it's all about. And it makes life a lot easier. I mean, so you might have a quick, spark, but it goes down very, very quickly, and you don't hold on to it. So you don't relitigate this problem. So many people go over and over and over, never letting the issue go, because they're trying to resolve it with the limited information you have in your conscious brain.
Yeah.
And you
the
can't.
Tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, you can't. Your subconscious is huge. Did you ever see the movie
Inside Out?
We talked about it.
Yeah.
It just shows you, and
It's
that's
a great movie.
It's a great movie.
So good, right?
And that's exactly it. You've got these millions of.
So that's a good way for people, if they're interested, is So Inside Out really shows you how you are your memories. You bring your history with you to everything you do. I always quote Dr. Eagleman because I love that phrase and it's so true. And what your hidden mind does is give people a tool to soften the impact of those memories. And not in a, I'm just trying to be positive way, not at all. They actually deal with some of the things that you may not want to necessarily deal with, but guess what? You're still living them out even if you don't deal with them. And we even had a lady this morning. She did some of her raps and she was quite new to it. And she read a rap and she said, oh no, that's not me. I've never had that. My life was like this. Bang. She's now got new perspective on what her life was like. And that can be a little bit confronting. These are not for the faint-hearted. These are for people that genuinely want to have better relationships is really the outcome.
With their life,
With their life, because it's about easing what causes you to get triggered. You asked me a question last time. You said, what do you do in the moment? I said, look, in the very moment, if you don't have the poems, the raps with you, breathe out because that calms the central nervous system. Then I thought of something after we went, which is what happens when the brain's relaxed, right? And one thing Christine, the mum, always says to people is, if you're stressed about something, rather than say, release the stress, I release the stress, you can do that. That's like trying to be positive. There's more going on. What Christine says to people is, release whatever is supporting my need to be stressed.
Mm-hmm.
Release whatever is supporting my need to be stressed. Your need to be stressed is only because of something you've learnt in the past. If you've never had this situation before, and you're not getting any warning signals triggering similar events from the past, you've got no need to be afraid, right? But this moment is triggering something in you from your past where you didn't feel good, right? So telling yourself to calm down is not going to help the mustard, right? So release whatever is supporting this sensation. Release whatever is supporting my need to do this or my need to be stressed. And that gets the brain to go that little bit further back in the chain to find out what's really driving me here. I brought the books with us. Guess what? I Am Who I Am, How to Reveal and Heal the Invisible Inner Child, still managing you today.
Actually, do you want to bring it forward?
Yeah, I can bring it forward if you can see that one. And these have got some of the little stories in them. So these ones are more stories to help people understand why they do what they do, why they still get confused. And then the next one goes to the next layer, which is, guess what? I am the layers of my life story. How to scan, detect, and refresh the layers of your life story. And this is about, we have all these little dudes and darlings, and you see your little backpack's quite small when you're little. And then over time you have more experiences, and your backpack gets pretty heavy, right? And this is just the weight you are carrying around with you every day. And so again, these are just short little prose to help you, there you go, shrinking my memories. Our formative years, less is more.
If you go right near the back, you'll see there's actually a rap in there.
Oh, is there one in there? Okay, I was going to read the one I did from yesterday, but no, let me have a look.
Maybe it's the previous book.
I'll have a look at the previous book.
Yeah. The one before that.
Oh yeah, here it is. Yeah,
doesn't matter, don't read it, just to show what they look like.
To show what they look like, okay.
Yeah.
That's one there, I know what I saw. And that's the classic, how everyone thinks they saw the right thing. And you can put 5 people in a lineup, in a police lineup, and they all saw something different. And it's helping you to see how you only see what you were taught to see. And what you were taught to see was based on the fears of your parents, of your carers. When your parents got angry with you when you were little, it wasn't they were angry with you, it was their fears being jerked and triggered that you might hurt yourself. Well, they will only know that if they've had a similar experience. So suddenly they put this fear now into you, oh, I might hurt myself. And if that was a gigantic moment for you, you're going to develop a fear around it as you get older. So maybe a bit later. I did do a rap yesterday on, we read the raps occasionally on our Facebook page in one of our private groups, just to help people become more familiar with them. So I can have a look for that later maybe, and I can read it out.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I find that very interesting. You let go of what brings you distress as opposed to alleviating stress.
Yeah.
Yes, well, you need...
What
you-
taught you to
to
stress
stress
in that
in
situation?
Oh, I see.
Okay, so you need a level of stress in your life.
It's healthy.
It's healthy, and you need it for a degree of protection. One thing they don't do is take away your fears, so that you're totally dangerous to yourself. That they don't do that. They just lower the impact when you have these up and down moments. And so, yes, you find that you're a lot calmer, a lot more balanced in the middle. So you will get it. Yeah, you're suddenly feeling a bit anxious or about something. They bring you back down, and you find that you actually come back quicker to the middle. So even if you haven't done a rap to reduce the stress at the time, just because you're in the habit of doing them, and because you've already restructured your memories with a new perspective, the stress isn't as high, and it reduces a lot quicker, a lot sooner. And
So you'd
Better
say,
then.
yeah. So you'd say you'd still have fears. It's just not as intense.
Correct.
Correct.
100%. Yeah.
yeah.
That's there you go. That's all you need.
Yes. I mean,
100%.
you see, a little bit more complicated is that your whole body is made up of cells which you're replacing continuously as we live. We have to. We couldn't survive. Okay. And in those cells are all your memories, because that's how your body functions. It has to have memories to function. Okay. So every time you get triggered, you actually trigger those cells and the memories in those cells. And so you can, if you stress them all the time, you damage them. Okay.
Actually, I'll pause. In fact, there's research now which shows that you literally pass on your stress to your children through your DNA.
Right.
They've
Yeah.
actually been able to show that now. That is how important it is to get ease on how you learned to stress, because you weren't born stressing, how you learned to stress. Because if you don't, you're literally passing it on to the next generation.
And so expanding on that, so your cells are there, they're going up and down, they're getting hormones, they're getting chemicals, they're getting emotions, all that going on, right? As long as they calm or balance, they're good, then they can reproduce in the same format. As soon as you confuse your cells, that's when they get into trouble, okay? Because now they don't know how to produce the same good, healthy cells, so they produce a bad cell maybe. Or if you think about it, right now, sitting here, you're surrounded by all sorts of virus, bacteria, things in the atmosphere, even though you've got a very healthy, clean house. I'm not saying that. That's just life, isn't it? We're surrounded by that, okay? But you're not sick. We're not sick. And you're not falling sick. So why is that the case? Okay. Why don't we catch all these bugs and that? Oh, well, my immune system's built up. Yeah, well, the immune system still had to have been exposed to learn how to defend itself. Okay. So why does that happen?
It's because of stress hormones. The stress hormones literally damage your cell reproduction process. And as a result, you're still surrounded by the same bacteria, but suddenly you get sick. It's just because those stress hormones have damaged
open the cells up to allow the bugs to come in.
Effectively.
And in fact, if you look at yourself, or you suddenly think, oh, I've suddenly got a bit of a cold or whatever, oh, well, it must have been, caught it from somebody. Now, what you actually should do is think, have I just had a stressful incident just recently in the past whatever period of time? And I bet you if you think back, you have. It might not be a big one, but you have. And that may have been just enough to open you up to allow a little bug to come in and get sick.
Just so being stressed can actually cause certain things like maybe cancer or something.
Yep.
Like
I think
They
would say I don't.
We're not going to go too far, but
yeah.
The whole point is a healthy body. A body is healthy when it has less excessive stress hormones going through it. So some stress hormones are good because it motivates us, it gets us going. It's again when things are too extreme in the body, that is what literally wears the body down. And when the body cannot reproduce healthily, then of course we're going to be more susceptible to whatever we're faced with in the environment. And it's more than that. For children, it's particularly damaging. They can actually, again, I like the neuroscience, they can look at the brains of children who have suffered excessive trauma, and the brain does not develop the same way. It actually it's damaged by it. And the more you get to see your parents' lives, your carers' lives, your siblings' lives with this new adult perspective as opposed to what they did to me, that is when you downsize those memories that are driving you. We often say to people, it's about living with, when you do the RAPs, it's about living with compassion and ease as opposed to reaction and fear.